Hi, welcome back to the 2013 film blog. And after a long absence, I'm afraid, I do apologise. It's been a bit manic for the last few weeks, so we've got an awful lot to catch up on. There's a total of 4 films that I've seen since I last updated here, so we've got to get through Hijacking, we've got to get through In the Fog, Star Trek Into Darkness, and I'm even going to include A Separation, which was released 2 years ago, but heck, I saw it at the pictures, loved it, so I'm going to review it later on. So, first things first, we're going to look at A Hijacking, which is the new film from Tobias Lindholm, who probably isn't really a household name to anyone, certainly wasn't to me. Had to check his name in all sight and sound, but Tobias Lindholm worked alongside various people on The Hunt, most notably Thomas Winterberg. He's also one of the writers and creators of Borgen, so for anyone who, like me, spends their Saturday nights on the couch watching Danish TV, then I think you'll know what I'm talking about. And I'd say again, if you are the kind of person that watches that kind of thing, then you might well recognise a few of the actors here, because there are a couple of them who've been in Borgen and indeed The Killing as well. So, the basic plot of A Hijacking, as the name would seem to suggest, it is all about a cargo ship that gets hijacked. It's sailing from Denmark across to Hong Kong, and on board are a motley crew of Danes and various types. And the opening scenes are done actually rather well. We see the ship's cook, who's played by Pilu Asbeck, who people who watch Borgen will know as Casper Yule, the PM spin doctor, but obviously he's in a very different role here. He emerges in a vest and looking a bit dishevelled, and he's basically the cook. And he calls home, he talks to his wife, talks to his daughter, and tells them unfortunately he'll be a few days later than he thought because he's got to stay in Hong Kong and train his replacement before he comes back. She's not happy, but what can she do? He's in the middle of the Indian Ocean. We cut to the head offices of the shipping company, and the CEO of the shipping company, who, as these things tend to be, is a bit of a... He's sort of the archetypal CEO, very much portrayed as ruthless, gets what he wants. He's played by Soren Malling, who, again, for watchers of Borgen will know, and also anyone who watched The Killing, he was Jan Meyer in season 1 of that. But he's basically the CEO, and there's a negotiation going on to buy some ships from the Far East, and he's got a price that he doesn't want to go below on it, but somebody else is doing the negotiating, who again you actually might recognise as he was the leader of the Green Party in Borgen. So there's quite a few actors here from Borgen getting involved. But this underling who's heading the negotiations, he's asked how are they going, and he replies they're going okay, and he's still hovering around the 60 million mark, which is way too high. So, we get our director, and he goes into the negotiations, and basically he just says, we are going to walk out unless you can meet my price, and goes to walk. And it's basically a typically calculated bluff, and what a surprise, he wins. He is CEO for a reason. And it's shown that this is the kind of person that he is, that his entire view on his workforce and everything else is that he has to constantly be showing that he is better than they are. He couldn't just leave the other guy out of the room. He had to have the other guy in the room with him to see how good he is at what he does. And next thing you know, we're cutting back to the Indian Ocean and the ship. But the ship has now been overrun by Somali pirates. And this is one of the things that does really well. For anyone who's sad enough to watch these reviews quite a bit, you'll remember a few weeks ago I reviewed a film in which I said that it takes a really brave director to look away not to show you. It takes a greater skill to look away than not to look away. And that is a skill that is absolutely in abundance here. The skill of looking away, of not showing you what's happened. So we've come back, and no one's even sure how these pirates got on board and how they overpowered this crew, but they have, and the crew are now stuck on the top deck, and for some reason the cook is called down. And he's called down, and he meets the pirate negotiator, who explains that because he's one of the few people there who can speak English, he is going to be required to be the contact point between the pirates and the head office back in Copenhagen. And so there's the cook and there's the captain and the first officer, and a few of them are put in a small cabin. And for sort of the rest of the film, really, we see the cook's descent from where he had been. He was perfectly content, he was happy in his job, he had a loving wife, loving child, and he's slowly being crushed by the conditions that he's forced to live in. Because it's done so wonderfully claustrophobically in that everything feels completely enclosed, like you can't escape, and that's exactly how you're supposed to feel. And even though I was watching this in a fairly big cinema, and as usual for a foreign film, it was pretty empty in there, you still do feel very, very uncomfortable, very, very close, even though there's nobody else there, and there's space all around you. You still feel so enclosed. And this is all transposed with what's happening back at the headquarters in Copenhagen, because the CEO has decided that he wants to take on negotiations with the pirates himself. He's got in an outside expert who's told him, in no uncertain terms, that you don't negotiate yourself with the pirates because you are emotionally invested in what's going on. You need to find somebody else who is completely outside, because essentially what this is explained, is a negotiation. You don't ever go in at their first offer because they know they aren't going to get that. You have to bring them down, they have to bring you up until you meet somewhere in the middle. And it's a very, very cold, very sterile negotiation. And, you know, the pirates start out insanely high, the CEO starts out insultingly low. And trapped in between these two, on these fragile lines of communication, is the poor old cook, who is being forced to be an intermediary between these two parties. And what he can't understand is why the company, who could afford to pay what the pirates have asked for, and the pirates have happily said, if you pay what we ask for, we'll go. And he just cannot understand why they won't pay the ransom. Because this is what it's all about. It's all about this claustrophobia and this distance between the two situations. Because both situations, both the CEO's cabinet room and the ship, are intensely places of intense claustrophobia. Everyone's crammed in together. And yet, both parties don't seem to understand what the other one wants. And like I said, the poor old cook, all he wants is the payment to be made and to get the pirates off his ship so he can get home to his partner. And he becomes increasingly desperate, and at one point, the pirate negotiator, Omar, says to him, if you'd like, you're more than welcome to call home. Why don't you use the phone here to call your wife? And the cook, he seems sceptical. Why let me do this? And, Omar just says, we've all got wives and kids. I think you just need to call her. So he goes ahead and makes the call. And you know it's a stupid thing to do. You know there's no way the pirates are going to be just simply at this for the good of the cook. But he calls up, gets his wife, speaks to her. Next thing you know, he's been torn away from the phone. And Omar picks it up and says to his wife that, you have to convince the CEO to pay us what we're asking for, because otherwise we're going to have to kill your husband. And it's just more intense emotional blackmail. And everyone, it seems, is standing on these little guys at the bottom and constantly attacking them. Because the fact is that, again, the CEO, he could pay the money. It's not a case of that. But the fact is that he, as we saw at the start of the film, he doesn't give in. He always drives for the best bargain. He keeps negotiating. That's how he's got where he is. And he knows this is a negotiation. The problem is that this is now a negotiation that's got intensely personal for him. And he, in the end, he begins to lose it on the phone to the pirates. And this is where it sort of becomes very, very interesting, because up until now, he seemed very much distant. He's only really interested in money. And ultimately, what you see through these scenes and times when he's left on his own in his office, and look, the problem is that he's being given now a face, a person who's genuinely affected. And there's quite a big plot, which we won't rule here, in terms of why he thinks that he's let everyone down. And, you know, he suddenly comes into Omar and makes a huge jump, because the negotiator says to him, you know, you should offer about this. And he jumps in a lot higher. And, you know, after the phone call, the negotiator really lays into him, saying, you shouldn't have done that. You've now ruined our position, because you've now made us look like we are willing to go higher. And he knows this. The CEO knows full well that what he's done is a mistake. But the fact is that he's no longer in control like he thinks he would have been. Now, I won't go through what happens at the end. I mean, there was sort of a plot twist that I didn't really like. It felt a bit jerky, a bit needless, but to be honest with you, that was a very, very small blot on what is an otherwise incredibly good film. Particularly good is the negotiator brought in to help the CEO, because he is just, for anyone that's kind of worked in these kind of circles, he talks in just pure management speak, and it's completely dispassionate. It doesn't bear in mind, you know, that what decisions you're making in this room have an impact on people outside of it. And, you know, a lot of us, we've all been there. We've all been in rooms, we've made decisions and things, realising, you know, what effect it will be having on those on the front line, as it were. So I think it hit me personally as an awful lot of relevance there. But ultimately, as a piece of filmmaking, it's fantastic. I mean, it's so intense. I mean, it's the people behind Borgen, so you know it's going to be damn good stuff. I mean, the fact is, these are the people who managed to turn Danish coalition politics into literally must-watch television, which is just so full of excitement and drama. And they've got here some of their best actors back again. I mean, Pilo Asbeck is brilliant as the cook, and Soren Malling as CEO. Oh, he is absolute star of the show. He really is brilliant. He has that sort of that glint of steel to him. You can see how he's got where he's got, but you also see underneath him he is so vulnerable, and it's the way that when he loses it, it clearly pains him to do it. So he's got a really good performance there from him. Just everyone in it is a great performance, and the sense of grubbiness, of claustrophobia, of oppression, of heat, of sweat. It's one of those things, you know. I was once having a discussion about the merits of cinema in 3D, and someone said to me, you know, the thing about 3D cinema is that the film can now come right out at you. And in response, I said, well, that's all well and good, but surely a great film, regardless of 2D or 3D, should drag you into it. If the film needs to come out to you, the film has failed. And this film is very much of that kind of thing. It drags you in completely. You lose all concept of time, of place, of wherever you are, because, as I say, you're suddenly within this world, and it's so oppressive and constricting, and it's a beautifully made piece of film art. I mean, I think the review may have come a bit too late now to catch it, but if it is still on anywhere near you and you get a chance to see it, seriously, go and watch it. It really is a cracking way to spend the evening, particularly if you, like me, are a bit of a slave to the old Danish TV dramas. I say go and watch it, go and enjoy it, and well, not enjoy it as such, but go and feel what it is that makes a great film great when it truly gets a hold of you and makes the entire atmosphere you're in change, even though it's just pictures on the screen. Utterly superb. Go and catch it. I'll be to you soon. Try.